All right. Well, I think that's most of everyone who's filtered in from the lobby. So I think we'll go ahead and get started here. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for our AGU AGI Heads and Chairs webinar. Wanted to do a few introductions. My name is Leila Gonzalez from AGI. I'm sitting in for Christopher Keene, who unfortunately can't be with us today. But joining us here is Ashanti Edwards, who's the Director of Ethics and Organizational Advancement at AGU, and Billy Williams, who's the Executive Vice President of Ethics and Organizational Advancement at AGU. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Billy and Ashanti to talk more about today's webinar.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Lilia. And thank you for those who are here online. Thank you for those who did send some information. I filled out the survey in advance. I know that wasn't all of you, but we appreciate that. And today, Ashanti and I are going to lead you through a discussion of the feedback you gave us on what you'd like to see in these webinars in your workshop for this year. And so I'm going to turn it over to Ashanti, who will talk through your feedback on the webinars. Then she'll kick it back to me to talk through your feedback on the workshops. And then we'll roll into the discussion overall. We'll ask you to keep it flowing. We'll ask you to, note things for follow-up. Hold your questions until the end, to the discussion, if you will. And when we get to that point, we can easily go back to any slides you may have seen you want to talk through. So we'll talk through your survey results and then have a discussion where we can come back to any points of the slide. So thanks again for being here. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ashanti.
Hi, everyone. Thank you again. I'm Ashanti Edwards, the Director of Ethics and Organizational Advancement at AGU. And what we're going to talk about now is the pre-event survey results. We had about 26 responses to the survey, primarily from academic leaders, department heads, and some chairs, and some individuals that we can see are serving in overlapping leadership roles and faculty roles. We think this mix is very important because it is telling us that many people are managing multiple roles. They're managing up, they're managing down, they're mentoring and teaching. And so they're also trying to maintain active research programs. So we want to think about our programming when we think about these different roles that the respondents are, in. So next slide. We also wanted to really be thinking about the preferred day and time. So we are very thankful for you sharing your preferred day and times. It seems like we're still sticking with that Friday in the mid-afternoon, early morning slot. And so we are going to continue to stick with that time frame for the webinars moving forward, unless we find during the discussion time that that is not feasible for most of you. Next slide. Now to think about the webinar themes, what stands out here is that there is a clustering. There are some top themes. As you can see very clearly, the top themes are the geoscience workforce trends, the academic environment and paradigm shifts and funding, and the recruitment of students. This all really points to there is a shared concern around sustainability and relevance. And so we'll dig a little bit deeper into that as we dig into the discussion later on after we go through the results. Next slide. Some other topics that rose to the top were just some practical concerns, like how to support early career faculty, navigating AI, especially in the ethical sense, and just managing digital accessibility and building up morale for funding during this political uncertainty. And so we were excited to see this different range because we believe that this different range of webinar topics, while they may not be able to be addressed during the webinars, there may be ways that we can address some of these topics during the engagement that we talk about later on throughout the year and how to engage you all as a community. Next slide. And so we also heard there was strong interest in global research and global funding, which we're really excited about here at AGU and AGI because we are an international society. And so we want to make sure that whenever we do talk about anything that has to do with related to funding, that we dig deeper to this, just the calls and proposals, but really understanding the funder's priority and how can we help you all strengthen your proposal competitiveness and also build multi-institutional partnerships. And so that was very clear in some of the pre-event survey results as well. Next slide. And in this slide, it does brings up some tension that departments are losing tenure track lines, and there's a different shift towards the sciences and the geosciences, and also different questions about curriculum relevance. And so again, I think this is another opportunity for us to be able to engage within the community, and how we can have discussions throughout the year and maybe even build collaborations. And so we'll hopefully bring this up for discussion later on in our discussion piece. Next slide. I mean, we believe that this slide kind of just broadened the lens for us. We do always know that there's concerns about workforce preparation, but I felt like some of the topics that came up is a little bit deeper than workforce preparation. It's talking about community impact, and it's talking about employer perception. And so we hopefully will be able to dig into that a little bit as well, and maybe also tie some of this information into our workforce webinar when we have that webinar later on in the year. Next slide. And lastly, what was important for us is to just understand if the community wants to engage in between webinars. Traditionally, Heads and Chairs has just been a webinar program throughout the year, and then a in-person meeting at AGU, the fall meeting. And so we wanted to get an idea of, is there a strong desire for engagement between webinars? There does appear to be a desire for some peer-to-peer interaction and some resources. And so a question we hope that you guys would think about as we get to the discussion piece is, how do we build sustained engagement, especially throughout the year? And how can we maybe effectively use our AGU Connect platform as we build into this discussion? And I'll turn it over to you, Billy.
Thank you, Ashante. So Ashante presented on the webinars. I'm going to talk now about your feedback on the workshops, the annual workshops that we've had at the AGU meeting. Each December, there was not a workshop, an in-person workshop in December of 2025. So we do plan to bring that back for 2026. So here from the survey of themes or topics you wanted to see, you felt most strongly about for the workshop. Again, there was a good clustering activity, but the thing that popped out the most were the ones around leadership and management skills enhancements, and the one about recruiting students into the geosciences. So all of those things listed could flow into a workshop. Just know that neither Ashante or I are from academia as our backgrounds. So we will be engaging with external resources to provide these workshops for you in December. Next slide. And some other items that popped up in your feedback on workshop topics, anything that would enhance leadership skills. So again, that was loud and clear. Someone just wrote that, any of the topics above would be good. Guidance on faculty evaluation. Again, space biomedicine and exobiology that came up before. Global funding opportunities, again, some of the same themes we heard when you gave feedback on the webinars. And then the next slide, session on workforce trends. We know we are going to have a webinar on workforce trends. It could be that some of this can flow into a workshop as well. And then practical insights, real examples. I think we've had a history, for those of you who have participated in the Heads and Chairs workshops, there has been a strong history of engagement, that those workshops have always received positive assessments from you. So we plan to keep up the quality of those workshops as we go forward. And you'll be getting more information on that. So the value of workshops and of webinars and workshops. What you have told us is you want action items, examples of other works that you can adapt. You want quantifiable outcomes, practical advice and recommendation. We don't just want to give you theoretical items. We want to make it real for you. Again, these messages all saying the same thing, being able to apply something that you hadn't thought of before. Content that would apply broadly to a range of institutional contexts, from large to community colleges. Um, Dealing with low enrollments in geology majors. I think a lot of you have seen in some states and some regions, some geoscience departments are being combined and in some cases even eliminated. And so I know that is of concern. So maybe some discussions around those trends. And I think building up that geoscience education, the student pipeline could help address that. So whatever we can do together to reinforce or help to mitigate some of those damages. Uh, Someone wrote they found every single webinar exceptionally valuable. We hope we can continue to make that true for everyone. Knowledge tools for use later, for using later. Leaving with the skills that I could use and implement. So again, some of you in this webinar gave us those comments, and if you will still have a chance to provide feedback in the survey after this session, if you haven't given us feedback already. And on that slide, opportunities for openings for collaboration and funding opportunities. The workshop will be most valuable if provided practical, actionable insights. Again, that same theme, make it real for you, not just theoretical, and then interactive elements such as case studies. We will be leveraging experts who've done these types of workshops into the future. So you don't have to worry about, well, what is Billy Williams and Ashanti going to tell us that we don't already know? Well, it won't be us. We will bring the resources your way. So between Ashanti, myself, and Chris, we will tap into the resources that we believe can make these very, very meaningful experiences for you. So with that, on the next slide, those are all of the that's the feedback on the exact questions. Again, if you're seeing this webinar now for the first time through recording, you do have a chance to go in and answer the survey. After this, what will happen is we will compile the results, engage with the content providers to provide you a schedule for the webinar topics for this year. This year, we are doing quarterly webinars, not monthly webinars. So there will be a chance for us to have enriched activities plus having some engagement between webinars, providing you opportunities to be in contact with your colleagues. So I'm going to pause there and just open it up for discussion on anything you may have heard here today or any other ideas that you want to make sure we have on our radar. So I'll ask you to probably raise your hand. Is that the best way?
Yeah, go ahead and raise your hand and we can unmute your mic. And I'm also going to drop a link to the survey in the chat. So if you haven't provided feedback, you can do that as well. And we'll send that out also with the follow-up email. But yes, if you want to share your comments on any of this, go ahead and feel free to drop it in the chat, or you can just raise your hand and we'll disable or enable your mic so you can unmute.
Yeah, especially if there's something you think we may have missed in terms of the way the questions were asked. Just please let us know. And I think the survey also provides an opportunity for you to give additional comments as well. Okay. We had about 48 people who registered for the webinar. So we know there's strong interest. I think, and the fact that people can view the recording, if there's a conflict in sitting here today live as in the webinar, we understand that as well. So Ann, I see your hand.
Let me go ahead and enable your mic. You should be able to unmute, Ann. Go ahead.
Okay. Unmute. Can you hear me?
Yep,
Yes.
we can hear you.
Great. Thanks for holding this, and thanks to everyone for coming. I'm curious on the, I guess just the people that are here, what kinds of resources and toolkits might you find useful, since that was the most popular response for the preferred types of engagement. I'm curious what people envision for those resources and toolkits that might be helpful.
And if you want to drop answers to that in the chat or raise your hand, feel free to go ahead and do that.
Yeah, and thank you, Ann, for asking that question. For those of you who don't know, Ann Egger it will be one of our content providers. She through NAGT, they do sponsor workshops routinely across the geosciences academic community. So she's asking because she will help us address what your needs are. Okay.
Thanks, Billy. I should have introduced myself, so I appreciate that.
In the chat, Mike's dropped in a comment about supporting peer-to-peer connections can help build and support more robust transfers, 2-year college to 4-year university and undergrad to grad programs. We do have a question here about certification and accreditations as well.
Can
I
you
don't
say
know.
more of the person with the question about certification and accreditation? Is it?
Yeah. Mark, did you want to unmute yourself? I can enable your mic if you would like to talk more broadly. Let me go ahead and do that. There you
Can
go.
everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Great. So we have a bachelor, a BS degree in geoscience with 2 concentrations, one an environmental science concentration and one is a geology concentration. And we've learned recently that ABET and ABET, the ABET accreditation agency, has a bunch of subgroups that handle certifications across the many areas that ABET accredits. And one of them is specific to environmental science, but very few programs nationally have that accreditation. And there's another one for geology and geoscience programs. And again, very few programs are accredited through those. I'm wondering if anyone else is thinking about this for their programs, and if anyone has any insight into why these accreditations have not really been sought in the past.
Mark, that's a great question. So we could entertain any responses here, but that is also something that we can post on the AGU Connect website where the broader community can see that and give feedback. So if anyone has feedback on that now, please respond in the chat, or Mark, we'll work with you to see if we can get that posted on the AGU Connect, because when you post it there, it creates a discussion amongst
Thank you very
interested
much.
parties. Okay. You're
I
welcome.
mean, I will say that this is even more broadly connected to the fact that I think the geosciences have generally not sought to have, you know, an AP exam, for example, or AP accredited high school courses in the geosciences, and that there is no GRE subject test in the geosciences. And you know, that's a particularity of the geosciences, because the other sciences have really been very active in that area. And I just think it's something for us to be thinking about as geoscience programs are shrinking and fewer students from high school are being exposed to geosciences at the high school level. It makes it harder and harder to recruit into geoscience programs once they get to college.
Yeah, those are great insights, Mark. No, Chad has a comment here in the chat that he posted about we focus on ASBOG, but it'd be great to hear about the status of geology state licensure. But accredited certificates also sound good. So it sounds like there's some definite interest here on licensure, accreditation, certification. Definitely some great questions and interest.
Yeah, and I remember in the November 25 webinar where Chris King presented on workforce trends, I think he referenced some of that, some of the undergrads leaning more towards the environmental sciences and having certificates available, and certifications in those areas might be something to consider as well. So I think this is definitely a topic of future interest potential.
See, we got some more comments coming in on the chat. So Brett had mentioned, has there been any thought of having in-person workshops at other conferences like GSA or other professional societies? So that wanted to throw that out there as well.
That's something we certainly will look into and consider. I mean, GSA is always a partner with us on almost everything we do, and they're part of AGI as well, so we can take that into consideration. It may be a different version, or it could be a similar workshop, but we'll see how that works out in terms of the expense for doing that, but we'll consider that.
Great.
Thank you.
Mike has also commented there, supporting small departments, building communities of practice, providing network opportunities, and preventing elimination. So
Yeah.
that's some more comments
Yeah.
there. And then I wanted to, if I could, just throw a question out to the group, especially going back to kind of student recruitment. Mark, I know you had mentioned that, and that came up also in some of the surveys. Do we have experience here in the room of people changing kind of the narrative about outcomes for students with geoscience degrees, looking at it as more of a employment engine and being able to communicate that with administration, maybe working with at the state level with licensure boards, other departments? Just wanted to throw that out there to see if we see any success stories on that, or if there's interest in like looking into that and finding those success stories about how to reframe geosciences as definitely an employment engine to help with recruitment.
I see the note from Christine Clark about even a low-key meetup at GSA could be helpful, and I think
Yeah.
that's a very practical comment. I think that's easy to do. And again, if we engage throughout the year in the Connect community, we can ask, who's going to be at GSA? Let's meet up on this day or whatever. And especially if there's some themes or topics running that you're engaged with a small subgroup, want to continue those conversations in person. This is a very practical way of doing that. One other item I will note, and I was not aware of this, but there's also an AMS heads and chairs group, and they have had in the past some joint meetings between this heads and chairs group and AMS heads and chairs group. So they've contacted us, and we don't know what that looks like for this year. But they do want to have some overlap with AMS. But AMS is now part of AGI, so I don't know whether we're going to have 3 heads and chairs groups going or what's going to happen there. But just stay tuned on that. There may be some broader discussions extending into American Meteorological Society heads and chairs members.
Yeah. We got some more comments here. Brett has shared that he found that employer surveys identifying weak and missing skills have been incredibly helpful. And having some real world examples of how those skills are used also would be very helpful. And Gary has commented about AI changing many things at all
Yes.
levels. And, ethical questions around AI really abound. So guidance and broader discussion on workforce preparation, ethical use of AI, and how to get
Yes.
it incorporated would be great. So, Mark, yeah, if you want to talk more about workforce development, that would be great. If you want to unmute and share your thoughts, that would be wonderful.
So I would say that our department has been focused really mostly on workforce development, I guess, as opposed to research and as opposed to sort of building geoscience students that are ready for grad school. And we actually have been using the CERC site at Carleton for many, many years, actually, and have found it useful. So, and I guess our struggle, so we have been successful. We are not a geoscience program that is at risk of being merged with other departments or having programs closed. But as I said earlier, one of the things that we have done is created an environmental science track. What has been, and this is being approved now, what has been really complicated for us, and I wonder what's going on on other campuses, is that we've had to fight with our colleagues in other departments in order to be able to essentially offer an environmental science degree. So even though an environmental science degree was not being offered in those other departments like environmental health and geography in particular, but even biology that has an ecology concentration, all are worried that if a geoscience department is teaching environmental science, then that's somehow going to hurt their program. So this
Wow.
whole environmental science thing has become a sort of a third rail on our campus that has been difficult. And of course, the whole point is that we'd like to offer environmental science in tandem with traditional geology, really to attract different student populations to the geosciences.
Mark, that's
Ho-
very interesting. Can you remind us again where you're located?
I am at Westchester University. We're in the western suburbs of Philadelphia.
Excellent comments.
Yeah. And have you had good luck working with the administration on, showcasing the department, saying, hey, this has been a really good throughput for the students. They're getting jobs. Has that been part of the conversation or?
It has been part of the conversation. The difficulty is that all of these different departments live in
Right.
different colleges. And so I don't know, again, what other campuses are like. We're a rather traditional sort of siloed university. And so our approval process, starts at the department level, goes up to the dean's level.
Mhm.
Then we have to have campus committee approvals, and then we have to have provost approvals.
Hmm.
And when these inherently interdisciplinary programs live in different colleges, it's sometimes hard to get, deans from quote unquote competing colleges to sort of cooperate together. And because we don't have an ag school, because we don't have a forestry division, it just gets challenging, even finding the faculty to teach what you need to in an environmental science degree. So
Yeah, that's a very timely topic. And again, I think it relates back even to what comments you may have made earlier about some geoscience departments suffering because the enrollment is declining and seeing departments combined, and in some cases, departments even eliminated. But you're describing a different phenomena as you try to expand in the interdepartmental potential conflicts. Mike made a comment about how we advocate at the state and federal level. So I know there's an aggressive advocacy program at the federal level through AGI and AGU. I'm not sure what happens at the state level. And I think that's something we can take back into discussion with Chris Keene as well to see
Yeah.
are there things there. Yeah, the grant funding and all that. There's strong advocacy for grant funding in federal agencies. Um, it's been a tough year this last year, as you all know. Um, it could have been worse in terms of the outcomes for federal funding, but we continue to lean into the fight and representation for funding in the agencies that are important to you. Other items that may not have been raised, and again, you can put it in the chat here, or you can also put it in the survey link after this call. So I see there's a hand up.
Yeah. Brett, I've enabled your mic, so you should be able to unmute.
Great, thanks. Yeah,
Yeah.
I figured I'd just say this instead of replying back and forth with Ann in the chat. So yeah, the identification of those skills in both the website and that paper, that's something I've incorporated. But let's say what would be really useful is like an employer testimonial of when someone stepped on a rake, as it, relating to either communication or critical thinking skills. Because telling students they need to communicate or critically think is different than giving them an example of where that hurt someone in an interview or in a job force. So if there were employer testimonials, respecting privacy and all, of course, that would be something really useful that I think a student could connect to. And maybe those exist, but I've missed them. But for me, that would, that's different than, Brett Carpenter telling a student that communication is important.
Do you mind if I respond to that? I,
Go ahead.
yeah, so thanks, Brett. I realized I reread your comment and realized that you weren't talking about real world examples of incorporating it in your teaching, but real world examples of it in the employment sector. I'm not sure why the link isn't working to the paper that I put in the chat. I just checked it again, but that does have employer interviews and direct comments from them and how they assess candidates for those the skills and abilities that they're looking for. That's still not quite what you're saying, like the sort of it sounded like you were thinking about sort of negative examples or why you'd want to have those skills, but it does at least talk about what their expectations are and what's most important and how they look for those skills.
Now, this is good input. It sounds like we're getting some good content and for potential themes in the workshop in December as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Do we want to
anything
go back?
else?
Oh, sorry, Billy.
I was going
go
to say,
ahead.
anything else? Do we need to go back to any slides, anything just to refresh your memory, or you good?
And one question I have for everyone is, are there specific, for those that are here, are there specific topics and themes that you would like to see in the workshop more than in the webinar series and vice versa? I can go ahead and throw that slide back up. I guess we can, because we use pretty much the same topics for both of the workshop and the webinar themes. So I'm just going to go ahead and put the webinar themes up. If you want to just drop it in the chat, if there's something more that you want to see for the webinar or for the workshop, that would be great to know, just as some additional input. And again, I did post the survey in the chat. If you hadn't responded to that, please go ahead and do so as well. But if you want to drop your comments here, that would be great.
Yeah. And just as a reminder, the big difference in your response in the webinar themes is in the workshop theme. What popped up more was leadership and management skills enhancement rated higher, and student recruitment was high there as well. So I guess that the feeling is certainly you can get more in terms of skills enhancement in a workshop than you would get from a webinar in terms of practical working examples. And you also ask specifically, you want things that are usable and not just theoretical. So if you have any other pressing thoughts, please reach out. It's not too late. You can also reach out to Chris, Ashanti, or me offline. We prefer you fill it out in the form. But you can reach us. For the people at AGU, this is the first initial or first name, then the last name. So for me, it's B. Williams at agu.org, and for Ashanti, it's A. Edwards at agu.org. So we welcome your feedback at any time. Again, we will take this feedback. We'll give it another week or so to see if we get additional feedback from people who watch this recording. And we'll compile those. We'll work with our content providers to structure out the exact schedule and program for the year for what will show up in the webinar, what will be at the workshop, as well as talk with you about how to engage, give you instructions on engagement in the Connect site to keep yourself having individual topics that don't have to be moderated by anyone, but we can also help start some themes or some subtopics for you if you like. Any other items, Ashanti or Lilia?
I think
No,
that
we're just
covers it for me.
Yeah, I think that's it. We appreciate everyone's engagement and feedback. Very helpful.
Just let everyone know we'll have the webinar posted by early next week. I'll go ahead and send out an email to everyone and we'll get it posted across social media as well. And then Ashanti, over to you. get
That's what we have.
questions. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you have any questions, you can email me directly. Also, as Billy stated, we're trying to revive the AGU Connect site. So we had some people that also during the survey, there's an opportunity in the survey that if you want to help with contributing to anything or help be a part, then you could provide your email address. We had a lot of people provide their email, so we'll also be following up with those folks to see if they want to help facilitate some conversations in AGU Connect and see other ways that they may also want to help contribute as we continue with the year-long engagement outside of the webinars and the actual workshop. Well, that is it for us for today. Just be on the lookout for a follow-up email with the webinar link, as well as if you haven't filled out the survey, just please take the time to fill it out for us so we can have a really good compiled information with all the data. And we should be following up with everyone within the next week. So have a wonderful weekend and thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.